Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the Jay Stevens Podcast. This is episode 55, dedicated to a man that was born in 1955, Mr. Moses Malone. And as always, thank you for listening and downloading to another episode of the podcast. On today's episode, we have not just one guest, but two. Something that's never been done here on the podcast. Ronnie Roberts, the gentleman that I went to high school with, played football with him. He joins me. And Garrett Grandy, a guy I went to college with, he joins me as well. Both men have been previous guests on the podcast. This idea was kind of birthed. Garrett, when he was on first. He mentioned possibly coming on during the NFL playoffs. When Ronnie was on, he mentioned possibly doing an episode with Garrett. Both ideas came together, and that's how we get this episode today. A few things I want to mention, then we'll get right to the conversation. One, this conversation was being recorded during the Vikings and Saints football game Sunday afternoon. So if you're wondering, while you're listening to it, why in the world is he mentioning things that are going on during a game on Sunday? Well, that is why this is being recorded during that game. Also, Ronnie is out getting an oil change. So if you hear any background noise, that is probably why. At the end of the episode, we still have one more bowl game to pick, the Lending Tree Bowl between Louisiana and Miami of Ohio. We will pick that game, and also I'll give you my updated record for bowl game picks. So without further ado, let's go ahead and take a trip to Chicago, to the state of New York, to have a listen to and enjoy a fun conversation with myself, Garrett Grandy, and Mr. Ronnie Roberts. Hey, Ronnie and Garrett, welcome back to the podcast.
Yeah, appreciate it. Thank you.
Hey, Ronnie, Patriots lost last night. You and I have been Colts fans all of our lives. Garrett's the lone Patriots fan among us. He's kind of the last man out. He's outnumbered. Tell me about what you thought, what this loss last night meant to the Patriots this season, and what you thought about that.
It was one of those things to where when everybody's thinking about the Patriots, they're thinking of Tom Brady throwing a touchdown on the first drive. And most people were probably starstruck when Derrick Henry just was running the ball like crazy, being 6'4", 250-plus pounds, running the ball. And, defenders are bouncing off of him like bowling balls. He's only right to be that size and run for over 180 yards in a game. So their strong suit for the Patriots was their defense. And then there was an incident when Gilmore went down and Van Noy was shaken up, and I think there was Roberts, the linebacker, that was dealing with the shoulder. But, for a Patriots team that you would have expected to put more than 12 points on the board, and actually average more than 30 a game, I assume, throughout the year. It's kind of one of those blows that nobody really saw coming. But as they mentioned before, Tom Brady needs help. He needs more receivers to throw to. Obviously they can't always rely on the running game. And, from there, you need to have a balanced team. Now, obviously, I had mentioned when I was doing my notes before, we had chimed in and got this podcast started that, offenses win games, but defenses win championships, to where the Patriots defense looks like they hung in there for a while, but after that, they just kind of fell apart and let Derrick Henry do what he had to do to win the game.
Garrett, I know that loss hurt for you. Go ahead and say what you got to say.
Well, I will say I think I was on the podcast in November, I believe, and at that time the Patriots, I think, were 8-1. They had just got blown out by the Ravens, and we were a lot of people were comparing when they were 8-0, they were comparing them to the 2017, and I immediately was like, no way, this is not the 2017, and I think that showed it. So. A lot of people want to be surprised by them losing last night, but I was disappointed, but I was not surprised because typically, if you look at any run the Patriots have ever had in the Super Bowl, they've never, I don't believe they've ever won a Super Bowl not having a first round bye. I think I think every Super Bowl they've won, they've had a first round bye. So this was something that was kind of expected, and I definitely did not expect them to get through Baltimore or Kansas City. And but the way it ended was shocking. I kind of expected a little more out of the offense, even though the offense hasn't really been that great for several weeks. But I had some optimism after the Bills game. They looked good against the Bills, and then and then you lose to Miami at home. You're watching the first quarter or the first half. It was really that second quarter touchdown right before the end of the half, and the Titans had the lead at the half. I thought, well, this is going to come down right to the end, and Titans made the plays at the right times. I think the key of the game, and I'm sure as Colts fans you'll probably laugh at this, but if you remember, there was about 5.5 minutes left, and Mike Vrabel ran 2 minutes off the clock, committing delay of games and false start penalties. And and in reality, that is a very Belichick thing to do, and the fact that it was done against him, I'm sure, is a hilarious thing to many non-Patriots fans. The fact that was done, and what's hilarious about it is that Belichick had done that earlier in the year against the Jets, that very same thing. And it's funny that Vrabel, who is an ex-Patriot, would come in and do the same thing. It was a very smart thing to do. Tennessee stuck with what makes them good, which is running the football. I know Tannehill's played well, but I mean, Derrick Henry had 1,500 yards in the season. So I wasn't totally shocked by the outcome. It didn't surprise me. And if you watch the interviews after the game, it almost seemed like Brady and Belichick weren't surprised either. There wasn't the same disappointment or the level of almost anger that you see from Belichick after a loss. It was kind of like they've accepted it. We know that this team was not what it could be, what it was. I mean, you look at the beginning of the year, they had Josh Gordon, Antonio Brown. I mean, everyone's like, this is the best receiving core in the league. And then 12 days later, 11 days later, we all know what happened. Brown's gone, and now Gordon, of course, we don't even know if he's ever even going to play in the NFL ever again. So I mean, to me, it's not shocking that they lost. To me, how they lost was kind of shocking. I kind of expected maybe a little more of a high-scoring game, but what Ronnie said is true. With the defense, I mean, they held their own for a little while, but eventually, when you got Henry barreling down on you every play, I mean, the guy's picking up he must have averaged 7-8 yards a carry last night. They couldn't stop him for nothing.
No, I think a couple things about this season that I noticed were different. There was no major tight end threat, and even back until when it was Gronkowski and Aaron Hernandez. I mean, it's unfortunate that he's no longer living, but when you had those two together, they were amazing. And then you lose Gronk, and then this year, let's talk about last night. They weren't able to stop the one thing that made the Titans go on offense. And Belichick, year after year, he always finds a way to neutralize what you do best, not just on offense, but even on defense. And Derrick Henry, everybody knows how good he is. He's been killing all year long. Then all of a sudden, they get in this situation where Derrick Henry is doing whatever he wants. I think it was to the tune of 182 yards, 1 touchdown. But there was no answer. And while I was watching the game, I like to watch O-line, D-line play, the stuff in the trenches. There was numerous times, it was crazy. The Titans' offensive line was literally just bullying the Patriots' defensive front seven. And I'm thinking, this is not normal at all. I hope things aren't this way next year and the year after. I hate to see teams that were good go ahead and fall. Transition to the dynasty. Garrett, sticking with you. The Patriots have been on this run for a long time. I think 2001 was a Super Bowl, but I think even going back further than that, most people don't want to talk about it. They went to the Super Bowl in the mid-'90s. So they have been on this run, this trajectory for a long time. Of course, they go back to 2001 because that's when they won their first Super Bowl. You being a Patriots fan, you've been living this. You live up in that area. You hear a lot of talk about this now, about the Patriots. Do you think they'll be good next year, deep playoff run next year, or do you think everything is, as far as the dynasty run being over, did it end last night?
I don't think it ended last night. I don't. I'll give you a few reasons why, and it's not even really because of Brady. I think because you still have, I believe it's still kind of a weak division. I still think it's kind of a weak conference. I know you have the Ravens and the Chiefs, but to me, that just the fact that they still play in the AFC East is they will be right there in the division. I think with Belichick being there, to me, he's kind of chasing after that all-time win record, Don Shula's record. I don't see them just falling off the table. Now, there's a lot of speculation about Brady, and I don't know if you watched the whole game last night, but right at the end of the game, Tony Romo was talking, and he said, just knowing how Tom is, he wouldn't want to go out like that. So, and I was kind of on the fence of maybe he might retire. I don't think he'll play somewhere else. To me, it comes kind of down to Robert Kraft. Like, is he willing to put up the money? And typically, Patriots organization, they don't put up the money that other teams typically do to keep players or to bring in free agents, with maybe Antonio Brown being the exception because they paid that man a lot of money to come in for 1 year. Of course, that didn't work out, but
not at all.
I don't think that they will. I don't think they'll be 14-2 next year. But I don't think they'll go, 8-8 or something. I see them right around where they are this year, which is 11-5, 12-4. Probably get in, maybe get a bye, but it's tough because in the conference right now, you've got so many young. Deshaun Watson, Patrick Mahomes, Lamar Jackson, all very young, all still developing players around them that are young. I don't see where those three guys are going anywhere anytime soon. I think Mahomes is about to get probably the largest contract ever. They'll probably sign him some massive deal in the off season or very soon. I don't, like I said, with the system the way it's built, with Belichick still there, I don't see how he's going to allow them to become a dumpster fire. I just don't see that happening. I don't think Brady will play anywhere else. My guess, based off last night, is he will come back probably for 2 more years because he said, they asked him last night, they said, do you see yourself retiring? And he said, it's very unlikely, was his response. So a couple things could happen. If Brady leaves, some team, maybe like the Chargers, will pay him, a good amount of money to get him out there. And maybe the Patriots will try to. Now, he's not franchise tag, but there is something known as the transition tag, which is essentially you can match an offer, whereas then Brady would have to choose where he would go. And I don't see a 43-year-old quarterback going somewhere else. But then again, it's Tom Brady, and I would put him, as far, even with Peyton Manning, as far as the competitiveness, probably nobody's as competitive, as he is, more competitive, wanting to win, the will to win, the desire to win. So he's going to do what's best for him. Now, of course, his family's going to play a role in that decision. And his kids are growing up, you want to be with your kids, and so all that plays into it. But I don't think, to shorten my answer, I don't think the dynasty is dead, but I don't think it's going to last much longer. And I don't see where Brady leaves to go somewhere else. It's either he'll retire or he stays. With Bill still there, I just don't see how it just dies off. I think if Bill Belichick was retiring, then as a Patriots fan, I would be panicking. I'd be like, this is the end.
That makes sense.
But with him still there, I think the system is built to where, and in reality, and I'll finish with this, is the Patriots really were a defensive team for most of the year. It really wasn't that much on Brady's shoulders. So the fact that they won 12 games with really Brady not playing that well throughout most of the year is a testament to Belichick, to the defense. I think they still got some good cornerstone players in the defense that might stick around.
Well, I wouldn't call it the dynasty's over. Garrett touched on a couple of good points. One, Belichick, he's going to stick around as long as Bob Kraft allows him to. Yeah. Now, you never hear about a contract extension with a head coach. Mm-hmm. Obviously, there's talks, Jason Garrett leaving and a number of other head coaches either being fired or their jobs are being dismissed. But for me, the dynasty, it's only going to go as far as, the owner and the head coach allows it to go. Now, Garrett touched a point again of specifying that, Brady, he played pretty conservatively, with the talent that he had and, the defense playing the way it did as well. So for me, in regards to the dynasty, I'm going to agree with Garrett, the dynasty, if Tom Brady, if he plays another 2 or 3 years and say he gets lucky and wins another Super Bowl ring, then you could probably specify that Tom Brady could and, if not already, is the greatest quarterback to ever play in the NFL. So with that being said, the whole dynasty thing, as I mentioned before, and sorry if I'm repeating again, but it's only going to last as long as Tom Brady's healthy enough to play and he's got decent enough players that'll play around him to actually make him successful. And then Garrett also hit on, where would a 43-year-old quarterback go? First thing that jumped into my head is not necessarily the 43-year-old quarterback. I mean, think of Brett Favre when he left Green Bay.
Yeah.
He left Green Bay for Minnesota, correct? Or
Correct.
It might have been the Jets before that, I think.
Yeah, I forget the order.
and he was 40. So, they took a chance on him. What's that?
I think it was Minnesota, then the Jets. You're right. Yep.
Okay, yeah. But, in regards to the age thing, as long as Tom Brady stays upright and he's got an offensive line that can block for him, he can honestly stand back there and break dance and get the pass off. Now, obviously, the other question is who's going to catch it? Because you don't have Josh Gordon anymore. Antonio Brown let his mouth run him out of New England.
Yep.
And you have, my key thing is, and sorry if I'm jumping off topic, but why did they waste their first pick on N'Keal Harry when they could have gotten DK Metcalf or they could have gotten some other standout from Alabama or Clemson or, you could name a bunch of other receivers that could have been more talented and more in demand than N'Keal Harry. Not saying that he's a wasted talent. I think it's just going to take him a lot longer to develop than what the Kraft family and as well as Belichick is expecting them to develop into, rather. And so transitioning into the whole Tom Brady, I give him 2 years, possibly 3 if he is able to get more talent around him besides Julian Edelman dealing with the injury. Heck, they called Ben Watson back because they lost their tight end talent as well due to injury. They're trying to plug and chug, trying to find talent that fits in that place so they're able to succeed and, make a run. I was definitely surprised that they lost last night and they had that 12-4 record. Because as Garrett also mentioned, they've always had a first-round bye to where I don't think it's been, over 10 years that they were ever even in a wild card discussion.
Yes.
And so I guess what it leads up to is, Tom Brady will stick around as long as he's got a line that can block for him and he's got receivers that he can count on and the running back position to get those extra yards or that 10 yards to get a first down and, making the series go on and then potentially winning the game is the key. For me, as you hit, Jay, we're both from Indiana. We're Colts fans, so that whole rivalry between Manning and Brady, I always hated New England because they never lost. And, Garrett's probably chomping at the bits like, what can you do? If something's not broke, you don't necessarily have to fix it, so run it until it dies. I remember those glory days when they had Ty Law in the defense and they had a number of other talent, Willie McGinnis. They had all that talent to where they had a balanced offense and defense, which they were just killing people. So at the end of the day, Tom Brady is going to do what's best for his family. Obviously, Garrett hit on that as well. And sorry if I'm piggybacking off of your answers, but you went first. You went first, and, you hit some of the key points, and I'm just going to piggyback off and add a little bit on there as well. So what it comes down to, I think they were mentioning that, they were selling their house in Boston, or in New England, rather, Foxborough. So that could be something along the lines of if Brady chooses to come back, who is he going to sign for? I mean, one, who's going to afford him? You know, a guy that's won 6 Super Bowl rings, you know, necessarily doesn't have every record that a quarterback can have in the NFL history book.
This is the first time he's a free agent, too.
Well, and then they were also specifying that he's a free agent, so he, like you mentioned, he can't be franchise tagged, but you also mentioned he can have, if somebody offers him money, New England can match it. So at the end of the day, who knows how big the contract that he'll get, you know, and how far will the Kraft, you know, family go to keep him in New England for the rest of his career.
Have you ever thought about making your own podcast? It seems like that's the in thing right now. Well, do I have the people for you? Anchor is a one-stop shop for recording, hosting, and distributing your podcast. Best of all, it's 100% free and extremely easy to use. And now, Anchor will match with great sponsors who want to advertise on your podcast. That means you can get paid for podcasting right away. To get started, go to anchor.fm/start. Once again, that's anchor.fm/start. Yeah, a couple things quickly. I know, Garrett, when you were on, you mentioned when Brady sold his house, you said he bought another house in the same area. Is that correct?
Yeah, in Connecticut. Yeah.
He's still up there in the area, so it very well could be that he does stay in New England. But with the 43-year-old quarterback, I'm not really going for the age, but Tom Brady has taken pay cuts over and over and over again to accommodate different players throughout his entire career. If he does go on to the open market, as Ronnie said, he's going to demand a lot of money. And he's not a guy that has gone out and really said, hey, Bill, hey, Bob, I want my money now, forget everybody else. But he very well could do that, and he's good, and he will get the respect because 9 Super Bowls, 6 Super Bowl wins. That's all he has to say, or he can just flash his fingers with the Super Bowl rings on him, and then they shut their mouths. Tom puts on a piece of paper what he wants, and they say okay. And that's kind of what if he does go somewhere else. So to a Patriots fan like Garrett, it's kind of a luxury that he's there up in the area. He still has a house because he could stay, but at the same time, he could be like, let me get paid what I'm worth. I've never really gotten paid what I want because I want to accommodate my team and I want to win. Like similar to a Tim Duncan, Tony Parker, they continually took pay cuts to help their team win. I know it's a different sport, but it's still two franchises that win for a long period of time. And they're both guys are like, hey, I want to win. For us to win for a long period of time, consecutive 50-win seasons, consecutive 12-win seasons, I have to sacrifice so that someone else can come in that fits our team very, very well. So if he does go on the open market, Mahomes is going to get a big contract, but Brady could get like the largest 1-year contract just because he deserves it, or he could just stay in New England. And Bill's smart enough to figure out where he can find pieces to fit the puzzle a whole lot better than it was this year. The defense did their job, but offensively, man, I don't think any of us have ever seen the Patriots team look like that, like they did even last night against the Titans. Ronnie, transitioning to a game that's going to be next weekend. Lamar Jackson. The season that he has had has been phenomenal, one of a kind, with a quarterback. I personally never thought we would see anything as dynamic as Michael Vick when we saw it. I didn't. I thought Michael Vick, with the way that he played, was unique, one of a kind. It'd be very, very rare and unexpected to see someone like him play in the NFL again. We just remember what he did last year in the playoffs and his struggles there. The Titans, how they can control the clock with Derrick Henry and with Ryan Tannehill with his play action pass and his ability there with that he excels on. What are you expecting from Lamar Jackson next week?
It's kind of similar to watching Michael Vick. I'm anxious to see how many yards he can get on the ground by himself. At the same time, Baltimore's got a good wide receiving core, so he's got that arm like Michael Vick too. And I think Michael Vick touched on the fact that having somebody as versatile as him, and having somebody, top what he tops, is a crazy feat. We thought as soon as we saw Michael Vick, that would be it. So what's to say he can't throw for 400 yards and run for 200 yards? It's just kind of one of those things, buckle up, grab some popcorn, sit on the couch, and see what he could do.
Garrett, I'm gonna. This is a way different quarterback than what you've grown up watching every single week in Tom Brady. But you saw Michael Vick as well. You saw Lamar Jackson last year in the playoffs. How are you expecting Lamar Jackson to play next week, knowing going in, Derrick Henry and the Titans can control the clock? Will Lamar Jackson, even though he'll get limited series, will he be able to excel and lead his team to a victory?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, I don't see how anybody's going to go into Baltimore and beat them. I don't see it. I could be wrong, but I think he's going to. See, the thing about Lamar Jackson is he thrives on not making any mistakes, which he doesn't make many mistakes. I know he's got a few fumbles.
Not at all.
I think he had one fumble in his last game, which is rare. It is very rare. And if they can, what Baltimore did in New England, which was dominate time of possession, I think that's how they will win. I don't think now if they let's say they are going to play Kansas City, which is my prediction that Kansas City will be traveling to Baltimore for the AFC Championship game, which I don't want to get too far ahead because I know you want to get maybe into some predictions, but if they get into a shootout, I don't like Baltimore's chances in a shootout, but in a more slower tempoed, time of possession controlled game, I think Baltimore is the best team in the NFL when it comes to that type of methodical, lot of first downs, run plays, options, things like that. That's where I think they're almost unbeatable. So I think if Lamar Jackson can take care of the football, can just do what he's been doing all year, Mark Ingram gets going. I think Andrews is becoming one of the better tight ends in the league, and they've got some big play ability as well. But man,
and they also have Hurst. They also have Hurst too, Garrett.
Yeah, yep. And so, I think if he can take care of the football and play mistake free, that defense has gotten so much better throughout the year as well. And I believe they just broke the record for most rushing yards by a team in a single season.
Wow.
And so believe it or not, the Patriots had that record. That was in the 70s. So that's been a record that's been held for 40, going on 50 years. So this is a very dynamic team. I just don't see they can beat you in so many ways. I think they're gonna run it all the way through to the Super Bowl. But I won't say my prediction after that. but yeah, that's with Lamar Jackson. I think if he plays mistake free, they control the ball, they control the time of possession, they should be fine.
The one thing I'm looking forward to next week between the Titans and Ravens, even more so than the Texans and Chiefs, because I don't think the Texans really have a chance against Kansas City. The defensive backs of Tennessee, their secondary, how they play so well, so consistent, and then also going up against Lamar Jackson, he doesn't really throw many interceptions. He's very, as you say, he doesn't want to make mistakes. He's very consistent. I mean, there's even games where he throws for maybe 185 passing yards, maybe a touchdown, but they beat you by 20 points. So it's not all him, but I'm looking forward to that chess match there to where how is Lamar going to be in situational football? Your last 4 minutes of a half, or your 2-minute drives. How is Lamar Jackson going to be in that when the critical moments of the game during the regular season? I mean, he played way better than anybody thought, but there weren't many times that he had to play situational football. And all throughout the playoffs, we're going to find situational football. I mean, we found it with the Patriots. I mean, we're going to find it every single game. Watching the Saints and Vikings right now, the Vikings are up 20-17 with 3:27 left in the game. And I mean, all throughout the year, we saw one possession games, and almost every game. All throughout the playoffs, we're going to find, I believe, one possession games in literally every game. So I'm curious to see Lamar Jackson when the physicality is going to be ramped up. It's going to be harder to get big drives. It's going to be harder to get big plays. And as I say that, the Saints just score off a fumble. So Von Bell scored. Crazy that timing happened at that time. But but yeah, that's what I'm looking forward to next week is more the situational football, focusing on Lamar Jackson because the critical points in the game is when he's going to separate himself from the other quarterbacks that play similar to him and the other quarterbacks in the NFL. And if NFC games on TV, NFC storylines, there are so many great quarterbacks in the NFC. You got Aaron Rodgers, you got Drew Brees, Russell Wilson, who 3 people voted for first team All Pro, and they were kind of confusing, like getting upset about that. But the NFC itself, every team has something different to bring to the table, or something different that sets them apart. What things from the NFC side, Garrett, are you looking forward to?
The NFC side, wow. My pick from the beginning has been the Saints. That's what I picked before the season started. Saints go all the way. I just really like Drew Brees. I think he's playing really well. And I think all around it's just a really dynamic team. I think we touched on this last time, where I just don't trust – I still don't trust Garoppolo when it comes to – if he's got to play an NFC title game and he's going up against Drew Brees or he's going up against Aaron Rodgers, I just don't trust him in that situation yet. And but I am really looking forward. I think the NFC is vastly superior to the AFC overall. And I think it wouldn't shock me if really that any of those top 4 teams made it to the Super Bowl. Seattle's right there with the experience, whereas they were just, I think they were 1 yard short from beating the 49ers for a second time, 1 yard away.
Half a yard.
Half a
yard. It was
yard.
that close.
Some would argue he even got in. That game infuriated me, let me tell you. I'm not even a Seahawks fan, and just to see how that it kind of ended with the pass interference that was non-called. I mean, you're talking, they were right there as well from winning that game, and that's the number 1 seed. And so matchup-wise, the quarterbacks, the collection of quarterbacks is really incredible. Brees, Rodgers, Wilson in the NFC is going to be so great. I can't even tell you. I can't even tell you who I think is going to win some of these games. Some of them really are a toss-up, but I think it's going to come down to the experience of those few, Rodgers, Wilson, and Brees. I just don't trust Garoppolo yet. But then again, the 49ers are so good that it wouldn't shock me if they made it all the way. So,
Ronnie, NFC side, what storylines or what things on that side of the NFL are sticking out to you?
Again, I'm going to piggyback off Garrett. He just seems like a pretty knowledgeable guy, and I would say the same thing too if I were to go first. But Drew Brees he's rewriting history with what he's doing. To I wouldn't say having a failure career in San Diego, but given a second chance in New Orleans. Drew Brees is just lighting it up. Obviously, he threw a pick. I guess it was the first pick, I think they said, in 6 games or something of that, I think the statistics were saying. And even on top of that, like he had mentioned, Russell Wilson, he's one of the front runners, for MVP. With Garoppolo, I guess what kind of gives him the edge is he sat behind Brady for a number of years to kind of see how he prepared.
True.
And see how he can mimic his style of play with, how Brady does. Now, the thing with Garoppolo is he's got a decent offense. He's got Richard Sherman on the other side of the ball in the defense that's kind of taking commanding role in that defense as well, along with, the Bosa brother. So what it comes down to, and you can't really predict, my prediction was to see, one, if Baltimore can withstand the hype and, everything that Lamar Jackson is doing. And the other thing is, how far can Russell Wilson go, with having DK Metcalf and having a couple other receivers to see if he can actually go to the big dance and win it as well. So for me, it's a crapshoot because my thing is it could come down to the wire in every game that we see leading up to the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
Because you don't know what's going to happen as far as if there's going to be, a false start penalty that could cost, somebody a field goal to win the game. It could keep the door wide open, and it'll be crazy to see, what happens, if Breeze is left with the ball with a minute left and he needs to travel, 60 yards and he throws a bomb to Thomas down the sideline and the rest is history. So, for me, I think my final pick after hearing Garrett, you can't really give anything less to Drew Brees than another Super Bowl victory opportunity that hopefully he can capitalize on.
Yeah, interesting you say that because I know I just mentioned I don't know if Ronnie, I don't know if you're able to watch the game when you're getting your wife's oil change, but yeah, they overturned that fumble and then the Vikings just punted. Drew Brees has the ball to go down, only down 3. I mean, kick a field goal, tie it, and he had the chance to score a touchdown. I mean, it's a setup for Drew Brees to be the hero. Early, I think it was the first quarter. I think it was first quarter. Taysom Hill had the long 50-yard touchdown pass completion, which led to a touchdown. Now, I'm not saying they're going to do the same thing now, but I mean, this is set up for Drew Brees to be the hero and to just keep writing, finishing another chapter in his long storied career. I'm looking forward, honestly, to the 49ers because the way my bracket sets out, yes, because the way my bracket, I for the first time ever in my life, I actually did a playoff bracket for the playoffs. Now, I got both AFC games wrong so far, so that kind of sucks. But I currently have the 49ers and Seahawks playing in the divisional round next week. Third time this season, both games come down to one possession games. And so now it's the last game, Garrett, I think you mentioned it, they were a half yard away from being the 5th seed. But now they're the 1 seed getting home field throughout the entire playoffs. Well, you're playing a team for the third time this year. You just played them 2 weeks prior to that game if the Seahawks do win later today. I'm looking forward to that defense. Richard Sherman being a leader on the back end. Bosa seeing what he does in playoff action against a team that knows him very, very well. But Garoppolo, I mean, nobody could have expected that Tom Brady's backup could get sent away and have done this. You always expect, and even I expect, even with Peyton Manning, we've got Jim Sorgi. We didn't want Jim Sorgi to get on the field at all. But yet he's Peyton Manning's backup. You play for Peyton Manning to never get hurt. And he had an injury, but he didn't really miss long lengths of time. But with Brady, we only saw Garoppolo because Brady got suspended. That may be the best thing that happened to Garoppolo because he got put into a situation where a team could pick him, a team could decide, hey, we want him. We saw him. I know it wasn't for a season, but we saw him for a few games. We know what he can do. We see some of his strengths. We see where we can help him improve as a player, and we want him. And now he goes to a situation where nobody expected the 49ers to be this good. Even before the season, I thought they'd be third in their own division, but they're first place in their whole conference. And I'm focusing in on that 49ers team, not the defense specifically, even though I love defense, I love physical play. But I'm looking forward to seeing Garoppolo grow and really kind of cementing his spot as one of the better quarterbacks in the NFL. I watch TV all the time. Numerous people are saying, oh, Garoppolo's this, Garoppolo's that. They kind of don't give him the credit that I feel like he deserves. Well, this is the time, this is the stage in my eyes that he can say, hey, forget whatever you're saying. Forget what your preconceived idea is. Let me show you what I can do on the biggest stage. Garrett, you kind of jumped the gun on me a little bit. I don't really like you doing that. But give me we're going to get out of here really quickly, but last but not least, give me your conference championship matchup, your Super Bowl matchup, and then your Super Bowl winner.
Chiefs, Ravens, AFC. I'm going to take the Ravens at home. And then in the NFC, man, it's tough. I'll go 49ers Saints, and I like the Saints. And the Super Bowl, I like the Saints again. So that's where I'm going.
Ronnie, same thing.
I'm going to have to say, I think Garrett had mentioned it, and sorry if I didn't hear him correctly. I think he mentioned Baltimore. I lost the schedule because I'm out and about, so I can't really look. Baltimore, Kansas City. That could be a nail-biter. It just depends on which Mahomes we're going to see. Are we going to see the Mahomes that's going to do that magic of flinging it, sidearm 40 yards down the field, or Lamar Jackson, razzle-dazzling down the sideline and spinning off of 3 defenders and running it for a touchdown. So, for me, I got to give it to Baltimore on that one. And then the NFC, I'm just thinking if Seattle can can beat Philadelphia, then they could have to play the 49ers or the Packers, if I'm not mistaken. You can never really cancel out Aaron Rodgers either, but I think what I'm going to have to go for is it's going to be Baltimore and New Orleans. New Orleans is probably going to take that game, and then it's going to be Seattle and then Green Bay, if I'm not mistaken, and then I'm going to have to go with Seattle. So it'll probably be New Orleans and Seattle in the Super Bowl. And like I said, much respect to Drew Brees on what he's accomplished in his career. He might have to win his next Super Bowl ring, and heck, he might even retire. Who knows?
I have on the AFC side the Chiefs and the Ravens. I don't like going chalk and going 1-2 like that, but I got Chiefs and Ravens in the AFC Championship game with the Chiefs winning that one. I'm still stuck on Lamar Jackson having to prove it to me. I'm kind of like you. It's only because of the way that he plays with his style of play, and that's the only reason why. I'm not really a big fan of the guys that are big on their legs to move the ball, quarterback-wise. And that's my only hesitation. I had Chiefs and Ravens, and then I got the Chiefs winning that one. And then on the NFC side, I've gone back and forth with this quite a bit. Going chalk once again, the Saints and 49ers in the NFC Championship. I have the 49ers winning that one. And then in the Super Bowl, I'm going with the 49ers over the Chiefs. Jimmy G, yeah, man. I've been big on the 49ers defense the entire year. It was a couple weeks ago. I had someone else on the podcast, and I said, I'm going Saints. Well, I love the Saints. I love Drew Brees. I mean, he's played college ball here in Indiana, so I kind of had that growing up, going to the Rose Bowl. He had that for me. But I just 49ers defense, and I think it really helps them that Richard Sherman has been there before, and he's been there a couple times, winning and losing. So he can be the leader of the team. He can put them in situations mentally that other teams aren't able to. For instance, the Chiefs looking to Patrick Mahomes. He's never been there. I mean, he's a leader of the team, but he's never been there. Lamar Jackson never been there. Mark Ingram, was Mark Ingram on that Saints team back in 2009?
I don't think so.
I think it was him and Reggie Bush. I think so. I'm not sure though. He might have still been at Alabama.
You might want to Google that one.
But I'm just looking. I'm looking for the 49ers and Jimmy G, honestly, to submit his name and with the league and say, hey, whatever you guys think. Yes, I was a backup at one time. Most quarterbacks back somebody up. I can lead a team offensively, and then I think this defense, being one of the better ones in the NFL, I think the defense is going to do what's needed for them to win the game. And the Saints just made the field goal, and it's tied 20-20. Sorry, I'm trying to multitask. But guys, Ronnie, Garrett, I really appreciate you guys coming on. 2 different perspectives, 3 different parts of the country. I really enjoy you guys coming on. Maybe, not saying yes, but maybe down the road, NBA playoffs, maybe towards conference championship time, we may do this again. I really appreciate it, guys.
All right. No problem. Thanks for the opportunity.
Isn't it amazing that 2 people that have never met each other can agree on so much, and how sports can bring people together from different walks of life all the time? It's amazing. I mean, we go to games all the time and we sit next to people we don't know. We cheer for the same team. So all of a sudden, a big 3-pointers made in a basketball game, you're high-fiving each other. Or next thing you know, you see someone over there say, "Oh man, I like your jersey." And then they come back and they say something about you. And next thing you know, you guys are connecting at a sports arena, at a sports game, and you never met each other. That's exactly what happened here. Garrett and Ronnie never met each other. It was a fun time to see, I agree with this that he thinks, or I agree with that he thinks, or of course, when 3 people pick games, no matter if it's a regular season game or a playoff game or a Super Bowl winner, nobody's ever going to agree on the same exact thing. Not going to happen. We all expect it. It would be fun, but it's not going to happen. And with our picks at the end, you saw, we're not going to agree on everything, but that's what makes sports fun. We argue, we debate, we discuss, and then we enjoy the conversations and the topics we talk about when it comes to sports and the games that we watch. One more bowl game to pick. Yes, one more bowl game, because a game on January 13th, the Natty, is not a bowl game. That stands out among the other ones, which is why that thing is on January 13th. Not a fan of us waiting that long to see who's going to be crowned the champion, but I understand why they did it on Monday, on tonight actually. January the 6th at 7:30, we have the Lending Tree Bowl. Louisiana, I have Louisiana over Miami of Ohio. Yes, Louisiana over Miami of Ohio in the Lending Tree Bowl. So far during bowl season, I have picked 28 games. This will be the 29th. I am 18-10. Looking to go 19-10. You boys from Louisiana, don't let me down. Don't let me down. I want this win just as bad as you want to win the Lending Tree Bowl. Thank you for listening to another episode of the Jay Stevens Podcast. As always, you can follow me on Twitter at Dr_J25. Once again, that is at Dr_JAY, the number 2 and the number 5. Remember to always subscribe, rate, and review. It's a great way for people that are searching for a new podcast to listen to come across this one. Then remember to always get the word out about the podcast via word of mouth. The things that we enjoy in life, we are more willing and somewhat wired to tell other people about. So no matter if this was your first episode or if you have been listening since episode 1, be sure to let people know about the podcast. This has been episode 55 of the Jay Stevens Podcast. I'll see you next time.